Hello and welcome back. Thanks for staying with us. You're watching WION The World is One, and this is World DNA with me, Jyotsna Kumar. Let's begin with the headlines. PM Modi arrives in the Netherlands as part of a multi-nation Europe tour aimed at strengthening India's strategic and economic partnerships. Says the trip comes amid growing India-EU trade ties and will help expand cooperation in various sectors. Donald Trump returns to the U.S. after a two-day state visit to China, calls the trip a tremendous success and claims progress on trade and relations with President Xi Jinping.
All I can say is that was a great success. I made great deals with these great deals, we have great relationships, but a lot of things can happen, you'll be hearing about it.
We're not looking to have wars, and if you kept it the way it is, I think China's going to be okay with that.
Donald Trump warns that pushing for independence could be risky for Taiwan, saying the U.S. is not seeking conflict and suggesting that maintaining the current status quo may be acceptable to China. Iran Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi says the United States has sent signals that it wants to continue negotiations, adding that Iran welcomes diplomatic support from other countries, especially China. UAE rejects what it calls Iran's attempts to justify terrorist attacks on Gulf nations after Iran accuses UAE of involvement in the war. UAE Minister of State condemns the attacks targeting the UAE and other nations. Lebanon and Israel agreed to extend their ceasefire by 45 days following U.S.-mediated talks despite renewed violence. U.S. State Department says negotiations for permanent political agreement will take place on 2nd and 3rd of June. Zelensky says Ukraine must respond to Russian attacks in just and tangible way, claiming that recent operations have hit Russian oil facilities and military targets. Praises effectiveness of country's intelligence services. The United States charges Bakr Saad Dawood al-Saadi, an Iraq-based commander of Iran-backed militia Kataib Hezbollah, over alleged plots to carry out attacks on Jewish and Western targets across Europe, Canada, and the U.S. Extreme volatility was on display in South Korean equity benchmark Kospi on Friday. Kospi hit a new record high of 8,000 points early on Friday and then crashed 8.4% in the same session. Now that wiped out 509 trillion won, or $370 billion in just 6 hours. The U.S. President Donald Trump has returned from his visit to China after 2 days of talks with President Xi Jinping, which saw both sides trade praise and tout progress in stabilizing what they agreed is the world's most important relationship. And upon his arrival in Washington, D.C., Trump hailed the fantastic trade deals and said that a lot of different problems were settled, though no major agreements were announced before he departed Beijing.
All I can say is that was a great success. I made great deals with these regulators, like great relationships, but a lot of things didn't happen, you'll be hearing about it. But that was a tremendous success. I think it really was a historic moment. Thank you very much.
What you got?
The U.S. and China have also not announced any major developments on issues like Iran and Taiwan that were discussed at the Beijing summit, despite Trump saying that he and Chinese leader Xi Jinping talked extensively about Iran during the summit. He had said that Xi agreed with him that a nuclear armed Iran is a bad idea and that the Strait of Hormuz must be reopened. Well, Trump went on to say that Xi offered to help find an endgame to the conflict, but the U.S. president insisted he did not ask Xi to put pressure on Tehran to reopen the Strait of Hormuz, suggesting, and I'm quoting, he don't need favors.
I'm not asking for any favors, because when you ask for favors, you have to do favors in return. We don't need favors. We've wiped out their armed forces, essentially. We may have to do a little cleanup work because we had a little months-long ceasefire, I guess you'd call it, but we have a blockade that's so effective.
Trump had also warned Taiwan against pushing for formal independence after he discussed the Taiwan issue with his Chinese counterpart in Beijing. In a Fox News interview, Trump dismissed the notion for the island nation to go to war with China, citing U.S. support as an excuse.
You're waiting on approving billions of dollars of weapons for Taiwan.
That's right.
Is that moving forward?
Well, I haven't approved it yet. We're going to see what happens.
What are you looking for?
I may do it, I may not do it.
Yeah, what's your hinge point?
Well, I'm not going to say that, but I may do it, I may not do it. But we're not looking to have wars, and if you kept it the way it is, I think China's going to be okay with that. But we're not looking to have somebody say, let's go independent because the United States is backing us.
Taiwan's foreign ministry also took the note of U.S. President Donald Trump's remarks regarding the island and said that U.S. arms sales are a security commitment explicitly set out in the Taiwan Relations Act. Now, Taiwan said that President Trump and U.S. senior officials such as Secretary of State Marco Rubio have repeatedly reaffirmed that its long-standing and consistent policy towards Taiwan, which has not changed. Meanwhile, China has affirmed that it will continue to implement all agreements previously reached with the U.S. and will establish councils for trade and investment. Earlier, U.S. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent had said that U.S. and China were in talks to establish a bilateral board of trade and board of investment. Chinese Foreign Minister Wang Yi said that the delegations of the two countries reached overall positive results, including continuing to implement all consensus reached in previous consultations, as well as agreeing to establish a trade council and an investment council. Wang Yi also confirmed that Chinese President Xi Jinping will pay a state visit to the U.S. in autumn this year. The Chinese Foreign Ministry confirmed that an invitation for the same was extended by U.S. President Donald Trump. All right, to give us more details on this, WION's correspondent Susan Terani sent us a report from New York.
President Trump arrives in the United States from Beijing after a closely watched summit with Chinese President Xi Jinping that both sides described as productive, but without any major breakthroughs. The talks focused heavily on Iran, trade, Taiwan, and global stability, with President Trump saying the two leaders made progress in stabilizing relations between the world's two biggest economies. Xi, however, stood firm on Taiwan, warning that mishandling the issue could lead to conflict between China and the United States. Trump also said China agreed not to provide military support to Iran and expressed support for the reopening of the Strait of Hormuz. While Trump promoted possible trade and agricultural deals, it's safe to say that the real outcome of the trip may have been symbolic, showing both countries are trying to avoid direct confrontation, even as strategic rivalry continues to grow. Susan Taprani reporting from New York for WION World is One.
Now, while returning from China after his two-day visit, U.S. President Donald Trump responded to media questions aboard Air Force One. Now, everything was going well until journalists started countering his claim on Iran. And Trump then lashed out at major media outlets. He called them fake news and even leveled accusation of treason. Now, Trump said that reports suggest that Iran still retains a significant missile arsenal are wrong and that he had achieved complete military victory in the war. Now, here are some highlights of his confrontation with the journalists.
But the fake news, guys like you write incorrectly. You're a fake guy, and guys like you write about it incorrectly. We had a total military victory. By people like you that don't write the truth, you should write. I actually think it's sort of treasonous what you write, but you and the New York Times and CNN, I would say, are the worst.
On another war.
You should know better, Dan. You're a professor. You know better. Your editors tell you what to write, and you write it. You should be ashamed of yourself.
Subject of another war. Is there any
I actually think it's treason. And then I read the New York Times, and they act like they're doing well. And everybody knows that. That's why your subscribers are way down. The Times subscribers are way down because it's fake. You with?
BBC for the radio.
Fake BBC. You mean the ones that put AI in my mouth? The ones that gave me, had me saying a statement that they now admit was not true? That the ones that put terrible words in my mouth and then had to admit that it was fake? The ones that are being sued now for $5 billion and don't know what to do? You're with BBC? They're another fake outfit.
Now, the metaphorical news is tightening around UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer. An increasing number of Labour Party leaders are calling on him to step down and open the way for a change in leadership. And this is despite that Starmer remains firm on continuing as Prime Minister for the remainder of his term. But how long can he carry on and continue to resist the pressure? Well, Greater Manchester Mayor Andy Burnham and Britain's former Health Secretary Wes Streeting are at the forefront of a potential leadership challenge to Keir Starmer. Burnham has already set the ball rolling and his candidature in the Makerfield by-election. A victory on this seat will open the path for Burnham to be a potential challenger to Starmer. Burnham needs to be a member of Parliament before he can enter a race to replace Starmer. Now, Wes Streeting has endorsed Andy Burnham's candidature in Makerfield. In a social media post, Streeting said Labour needs its best players on the pitch, and there is no doubt that Burnham is one of them. And this comes after Streeting became one of the most prominent ministers to resign from Starmer's cabinet. The political crisis has left the Labour Party divided. Nearly 100 Labour MPs have rallied behind Starmer, while around 87 MPs have asked him to step down. Any leadership challenge will require the support of 80 Labour Party MPs, but so far, no leader has officially launched a bid to replace Starmer. But most Labour Party leaders have a higher unfavourable sentiment among voters than Starmer does. And according to a recent YouGov poll, Keir Starmer's favourability rating is 23%, while 69% of respondents have an unfavourable opinion about him. Andy Burnham is favourable to more respondents than any other Labour leader, with a 31% positive rating, but 48% of the respondents still say he was unfavourable. Well, former Health Secretary Wes Streeting's favourability rating also remains on the lower side. 16% of the respondents have a favourable opinion about Streeting, while 44% have given unfavourable ratings to him. Now, another potential candidate to challenge Starmer is his former Deputy Prime Minister Angela Rayner, but only 22% of the poll respondents have given her a favourable rating, while 55% say they do not favour her. Now, the lack of clear choice to replace Starmer continues to puzzle the Labour ranks, and the political drama has triggered a rise in borrowing costs in Britain, while the pound is on a downward trajectory. The economic cost of a political fallout could further increase if the Labour Party fails to put an end to this leadership crisis. Now, 8 hours of sleep, and that's been sold as the golden rule for decades. But a new study now says too much sleep could quietly speed up the aging process inside your body. From the brain to the heart, researchers are warning that oversleeping may be aging your organs faster than you think. Here's a report on it.
For years, people chased sleep like medicine. More rest, more recovery, more hours under the blanket. But now, scientists say the body may not like too much of a good thing. Researchers at Columbia University tracked sleep patterns and biological aging markers in adults. They were looking at something deeper than tired eyes or lazy mornings. They studied how fast organs inside the body were aging, and the results were startling. People sleeping beyond 8 hours a night showed signs of faster aging in critical organs: the brain, the heart, even the immune system. The study found the healthiest range was between 6.4 and 7.8 hours of sleep. Too little sleep was harmful, that was expected, but too much sleep also appeared to trigger accelerated biological aging. Researchers believe excessive sleep may be linked to hidden inflammation, disrupted body rhythms, and underlying health stress. In simple terms, the body may interpret very long sleep as a warning sign rather than recovery. Scientists used biological markers, often called aging clocks, to measure how old organs appear biologically, not just by birth date. Researchers say people regularly sleeping more than 8 hours showed older biological profiles. The findings challenge one of the world's most repeated wellness slogans: more sleep is always better. Experts say quality matters more than quantity. Regular sleep schedules, deep sleep, consistent timing, that may matter far more than marathon sleep sessions. Researchers are also warning against panic. Oversleeping may not directly cause aging in every case. It could also reflect other hidden health conditions already affecting the body. Still, the message is sharp. When it comes to sleep, balance may be the real superpower.
Now, Russia's economy is shrinking. Official numbers are in, and they are damning. The Russian economy contracted 0.2% in the March quarter, and this is the first quarterly contraction in 3 years. The data comes from Russia's Rosstat Statistics Service, and last year in January to March, Russia grew by 1.4%, and that swing tells the story. The war in Ukraine is taking a toll, and Western sanctions are biting hard. The latest data shows the Kremlin cannot fight a war and sustain an economy forever. Moscow has spent massively on its war machinery that propped up growth for years. Now the cracks are showing. Inflation is high, labor is scarce, capital is fleeing. 3 years of war have taken a heavy toll, not just on the battlefield, but on Moscow's finances. Well, Russia's national debt is rising fast, and the numbers are alarming. Moscow is spending billions to fuel its war in Ukraine. Defense now accounts for nearly 40% of all federal spending. Oil revenues, once Russia's lifeline, are falling short. Western sanctions have strangled key export markets. Inflation is above 9%, and the interest rate stands at a 21% high. The Russian ruble remains under pressure. Ordinary Russians are feeling the squeeze. While the Kremlin insists that the economy is stable, economists disagree. The IMF has flagged serious fiscal risks, and for now, Moscow keeps spending as the war shows no sign of ending. But the economic clock is ticking, and it is louder than ever. Well, over to sports now. Could Virat Kohli play the 2027 ODI World Cup? Well, the former India captain is quite open to the idea, but he has a condition. Now, Kohli says he doesn't want to be part of the setups that make him feel like he has to prove his worth. In the latest podcast released by the World Challengers Bengaluru, Kohli said, and I'm just quoting here, "I want to play cricket and I want to carry on. Playing a World Cup for India is amazing if I can add value to the environment that I'm part of. And the environment feels like I can add value. I'll be seen. If I'm made to feel like I need to prove my worth and my value, I'm not in that space. If I have to be in the place where I have to prove my worth and value, that place is not meant to be for me. And I'm very clear in my head from that perspective. And it's important to know that Kohli didn't directly say that the current India team setup is like that. He retired from T20Is in 2024. After helping India win the T20 World Cup, he then stepped away from Test cricket in 2025, meaning that the 37-year-old now plays only ODI cricket for India. And that decision also resulted in his central contract being downgraded to Category B. Kohli is the second highest scorer in international cricket history, only behind the legendary Sachin Tendulkar, and has been in rich vein of form in the 50-over format. He has scored 300s and 3 half-centuries in his last 7 ODI innings, with those knocks coming against New Zealand, South Africa, and Australia. Now, there's time for Christopher Nolan's The Odyssey to hit the big screen, but beyond the budget and scale, it's the casting that has stirred a storm. But this isn't the first time that a race swap casting decision has sparked debate on whether it is historical inaccuracy or increased representation. Well, one of the most anticipated projects of 2026, The Odyssey, is adapted from Homer's epic poem of the same name. Helmed on a reported budget of $250 million, it is being touted as the most expensive film of Christopher Nolan's career. But that's not the only reason why it's grabbing attention. Ever since the film was announced, it is being dissected by fans and critics. From costuming to historical accuracy, the internet users are abuzz with their takes and how. But in recent days, the criticism has expanded to the film's casting, particularly Lupita Nyong'o's. The decision has received online backlash, with critics objecting to a black actor portraying Helen of Troy and her sister Clytemnestra, characters originating from ancient Greek literature. And among those critics is also Elon Musk, who has actively voiced his take on historical saga. He recently blasted Nolan's decision to cast a popular actor in the role of famous historical figure and termed it the hypocrisy of Hollywood. And in the recent past, Musk also reacted to a post where it was alleged that Nolan is racist against the Greek people and their cultural heritage. But the controversy is not unique. In recent years, several other film and filmmakers have been criticized for their casting decisions, particularly when characters are gender swapped or race swapped, meaning the cast of actors of color for characters originally played by white actors. For instance, in the upcoming Harry Potter series, the casting of Arabella Stanton as Hermione Granger and Papa Isidu as Severus Snape was met with backlash. In the 2023 film The Little Mermaid, Halle Bailey's casting as Ariel sparked a similar discourse. And since the character was traditionally depicted as white with red hair, and when Zendaya stepped in to play MJ in the 2017 film Spider-Man: Homecoming, the decision was initially met with criticism. Prior to the movie's release, critics claimed that she was playing a race-swapped version of Mary Jane Watson, which was a deviation from the character's traditional depiction as a white, red-haired woman. In the comics, however, it was later revealed that she was playing a new character named Michelle Jones. Well, in another instance, Rachel Zegler's casting as Snow White in its live-action remake also turned controversial. A combination of racist backlash and audience disagreement with the movie's modernized feminist approach landed the film in controversy. While gender swap and race swap casting isn't new, the debate does continue. While critics argue that it changes the core identity of characters, supporters see it as a representation and believe that the race has nothing to do with characters. All right, with that, we call a wrap to World DNA for today. News and updates will follow on the other side. You're watching WION World is One. Stay tuned.
In-depth coverage of global issues broken down into facts, figures, and simple words. Backed with analysis from field experts who truly matter, because we believe in decoding the real picture for you. So you get a much wider and deeper understanding of stories from around the world, a 360-degree analysis. An award-winning documentary series, week after week, creating the maximum impact. Watch WION Wide Angle at these times on WION World is One.
In West Asia, every move shifts the world's balance. Wars, ceasefires, alliances, power never stands still. From Tehran to Tel Aviv, from Damascus to Doha, the West Asia Post cuts through the chaos to reveal the region that shapes the world. Because what happens in West Asia never stays in West Asia. This is the West Asia Post, the region's story, the world's impact.
From the bustling trading floors of Wall Street to the vibrant exchanges of Asian stock markets, WION breaks it down for you to make sense of what's happening, as we reveal the key factors behind events, strategic battles, and the game-changing business decisions that shape the world. We bring you all of this and more on World Business Watch.
Campaigns, elections, alliances, controversies, and power play. Stories that analyze global and domestic politics. A dedicated show with varied perspectives, expert take, citizens' voices, detailed ground reports, and in-depth coverage from political corridors of the world. This is Race to Power, only on WION.
WION, India's global voice, the channel that brings you the biggest stories from across the world through India's lens. Now available in more than 190 countries worldwide, because we believe that the world is one. Watch us in Africa, Europe, USA and Canada, South America, Asia Pacific, Middle East and North African regions. Also available on these digital platforms across the world. WION. World is one. Where darkness hides.